Live and direct, live and I take no jive.
Legalize it.
Coming how much can a koala bear? Koala bear, koala bear. Koala bear. Barry pulls a joint out of his pocket. Bill says, great, Barry, a reefer.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Karma Koala podcast. And in this episode, we're off to New York and we're speaking to Daron Hudson, who has done a number of things. It's probably, I'm going to leave it up to him to tell me the things that he's been involved in the cannabis sector in New York over the past decade. But he was sort of early to the card rollout, an early license, I think, and I want to get an idea of why he started, what he thought he was getting into, and where we are now. Daron, thank you very much for being on the podcast. I mean, maybe I always like to start off with just a little bit of background about what got you into the cannabis sector. Feeling, I presume, positive and fairly naive some time ago, and you're a bit more worldly wise now, I should imagine.
Yes, I am. Spent a great deal of time in my younger days in the legacy field, cannabis, from being able to live in Texas, El Paso, and going over into Mexico, bringing bringing in pounds.
Yeah.
That type of legacy market. I guess the statute of limitations have ran out, so I can
You can sort of say what you want.
Right, and what's going on in Mexico right now is pretty crazy. They just told them to stay in the house because they're looking for some drug cartel. But needless to say, I've been in that market for quite a long. When I came back to New York, I come from a West Indian family that was very part of much of cannabis back then.
Were you Jamaican
Yes,
family?
my grandfather's Jamaican, and his nephews and them were in Rastafarians, and they were into cannabis very strongly. Actually, one of them got deported back to Jamaica for this thing called cannabis now. So it progressed into me being on both sides of the fence of cannabis, using and also selling. So as I got older, when I went to college and got arrested for a large quantity of cannabis, we lost my college scholarship and lost my job, and paid a whole bunch of fines for that. That was when I was 21 years old. I'm in my 50s now. So when New York started, fast forwarding a little, when New York started to talk about legalizing recreational marijuana, that opened my eyes, and because they were talking about making the first licensing the justice involved individuals, which that was me. I've been arrested for this thing over probably a dozen times, probably more, in 3 different states. So I started to follow it in my professional space. Actually, I'm an educator and a social worker. Worked at juvenile detention for the city of New York, supervisor. So I wasn't in those rooms, so to speak, when they were talking about the legalization and the advocacy behind it, but I was paying close attention to it. And then once they legalized it in March 31st, 2021, that's when I started to prepare myself to fill out the application. August 2000.
I'm interested. What was that process like for you at that time? Did it seem that what you were being presented with seemed honest and straight up, or did you see, as soon as you started the process, that it was going to be a lot more sticky than had been presented?
Well, I didn't find that out until we submitted the application. So in 2022, they were taking a long time. New York did not put any regulations out. New York didn't put any type of build any parameters around what this legalization looked like. So at that time, people that had money, they were just opening up smoke shops and all of these illicit shops around New York. So not until 2022, I was going in as an individual. However, I sat on the board of Housing Works Healthcare Board, which I fostered a lot of relationships with that because I was in the social work field. So when the president of Housing Works came up to me and they was like, well, we're thinking about getting into, the legal cannabis. I didn't know at the time that they even allowed non-for-profits to come in, but
Mhm.
it's to me at that particular time that it was a good thing for me to try to put a big machine behind me and go in on that route. The MRTA stated that the justice involved individuals were allowed to have equity, and so when I signed on to Housing Works application, I'm thinking, here goes the sticky part. I'm thinking that there was going to be some equity for me in signing on with them. However, the regulations that they had created initially was written very ambiguously. The was individual was entitled to equity up to 51%. However, in the non-for-profit sector, they kind of did some things where they put some wording where it says that the justice involved individual only had to sit on the board of directors of the non-for-profit.
Mhm.
However, regulations 116.4 stated that the justice involved, if a non-for-profit builds out an entity that's a for-profit entity under this application, then the justice involved was allowed to up to 30%. So
Mhm.
you see where the confusion was, right? And Housing Works, however, which I had a lot of respect, and I still do. However, they're a business, and at that particular time, I guess they felt that they didn't want anybody to have equity in their business because they're a non-for-profit, and they wanted all the proceeds to go to back to the business,
So, in
back to the.
terms of you being on the board for this, what did they think that meant? What did you think that meant? And what did the department think that meant? I mean, I would imagine it was three different things, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was what I thought it meant to me. It was basically sitting on a board and overlooking all the aspects of the store, the retail store, and which I did. I was there at the beginning helping them kind of build this thing out because they didn't really have. We were granted the license November 21st, 2022, and because of the political ties that Housing Works had, the state uh, encouraged them to open up
And where
before
where was that outlet? Where was the store?
750 Broadway, and
Hmm.
so they were encouraged by the state regulators to open up because they had the ecosystem, they had the resources to open up. The what I thought in terms of the MRTA, which was the law, was it was really focused on the small businesses like myself, and they didn't
Well,
really
I
put.
think we all thought that in the early days. That's what, and I think sometimes they even persuaded themselves that was the fact, but the reality was something different, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was something very different. They came out with this with what do you call this thing again? Um, where they was trying to help build out stores, and they were making promises, and then they got the Chicago Alliance people, and they had predatory loans and all of this different stuff, and
Yeah,
stores.
I remember that story now. The
Yeah, some
Chicago
stores,
loan guys.
some stores were asking, some landlords are asking for say $20,000, and these guys was charging them $40,000 on the loan, right? So there was a lot of messiness and confusion coming into 2023 for the for the justice involved individuals that came in and applied and won and was granted the licenses. The first 150 was granted the licenses, but some of them didn't have the wherewithal to even attempt to build out businesses.
Well, that's it. And then they were letting property, but they couldn't do a bunch of other stuff, so they were just paying landlords uh, lots of money, which was borrowed. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, which was borrowed, and so and then the regulations that they had in place was not even voted for. So we still had in 2023, we still had to vote on those regulations and speak into those regulations. And I don't think the regulations was voted into until June 2023. So there was a lot of confusion from November 21st all the way up into and soon after that, all the way up until now. Actually,
Well,
it
I mean, that
hasn't.
was my next question is approximately, I mean, you can't know exactly, but of those original licenses that are issued under, let's just call it equity, how
Mhm.
many of those individuals or groups of people still have a property that is still retailing cannabis? I mean,
I
20,
can't put a
30?
number. I can't put a number on it. I seen this. I seen the statistics and the numbers. However, I'm good friends with a few people, probably over a dozen people that were one of the first licensees, and they still have not opened up in the last 4 years. So you see the
And then what? So all these other licenses for private businesses have leapfrogged over the top of these guys, basically.
right.
And especially in this rush for the commission to look really important over the last 12 months, and they come out with these endless press releases, and we'll come back to them in more detail in a second. But what's annoyed me this year, especially with New York, is they all do that stand in a row with the 8 people behind them. We've issued so many licenses and we're turning over $1 billion a year. I mean, firstly, they're not doing anything at all and they're not
Mm.
taking any risk. And secondly, they're managing all these other new licenses on the back of the
Mm.
ones that they haven't even dealt with properly in the first place, correct?
I think that I think OCM had great intentions when they came out with this. If
That,
they
but
would have,
we can say that the same about every state. They all have great intentions. I sort of lost my patience with great intentions. It's like get people who actually know what they're doing rather than great intentions.
right, understood. Again, I also think that they have made a great change in the last couple of years. They've kind of got a momentum going and got a system going, but it still needs some work on it. When everyone in New York found out that they had this predatory loan guy from Chicago Alliance out, so there were more people that came from different states and MSOs coming in and supporting the help, and they knew that they were entitled up to 49% of the license. So they came in and started buying these licenses and buying equity and opening up. And again, when you're a small business person like myself, and you're looking at all of these different opportunities, and you really want to open up, you're gonna take an opportunity. You're gonna take an offer, right? You're
Yeah,
gonna
and let's be honest, a lot of these MSOs, they're not doing it for you, the small existing owner. They've got 49% or whatever it is.
mm,
Their aim is to have the 51 as soon as possible.
right. So you have to cross your T's and dot your I's when you're looking at these term sheets, and you have to be very thorough about it. In the beginning, and I must say, in the beginning, when I was having talks with Housing Works, I had a lot of trust because I sat on a board. So when I was talking to the president and CEO, I didn't have a lawyer in front of me. I didn't have I didn't have the finances to even hire a lawyer.
Well, exactly
So
right.
yeah, so I stress to everyone, you need an attorney. You need a cannabis attorney. A lot of the attorneys, they were just beginning out here and they were just learning the law, so to speak, right? And so you have to interview them like you
Well, I mean,
going
look,
out.
and that's
Hey,
still an issue now because that's what I deal with as attorneys. I know who all the attorneys in New York are. And you're right.
mm,
In the early days, their knowledge, it was more than everybody else's, but it was still limited. And the issue now for new people coming in, if you're a small business or an equity, want to be an equity owner, is those guys are now the big guys. So they cost so much money.
yeah.
You still have to go to the lawyers who don't have the same knowledge base of those who've been in the market for the last 5 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, I see it a lot. I went through it myself, but I was able to kind of pivot from Housing Works and gain relationships in this industry in New York and gain some good relationships, that is. And I was able to hire an attorney that I trusted and I believe that he's he's been he has my back and he has my best interest at heart, legally and personally. Um, I trust anything that I move forward with in this industry, I can go to him and kind of consult him in any aspect. Yeah, it's this market is, from the lawsuits, from the car licensees, and being a justice involved on a car license. I was able to pivot into getting a social equity license in November with the November Q, November 2023. So I was able to find me a location, which was going to be in my hometown, Brooklyn, New York, and I rented it out and I applied for the license. The license didn't come too quick, but I was paying rent for probably about 8 months,
Yep,
and
it's the same
then
story.
then the landlord ended up selling the building, and then the mortgage was on there, so I had to pivot from that building. Uh,
Hmm.
I couldn't stay in there no more because with the new owner with a mortgage, they're not allowed to have a cannabis on that property. So I had to pivot. Um, I spent close to over $100,000 on
I was about to say, was it about 100 grand that
it,
just went
about
out
a
of
hundred
your pocket?
out of my pocket, and luckily I had money that I had saved away from, my daughter's college fund to in life insurances. I was able to pull from that, but I wouldn't have been able to maintain. So, fast forward into last November, I met some great guys from Indoor Trees, which they were already established, and they were part of the legacy market too. And they got behind me, and here I am. I'm on the precipice of opening up, which in the next probably couple of weeks, or hopefully in the next probably next month or so. And I'm excited.
Well,
I'm a little scared.
you've been climbing the mountain for a very long time. So you're going to actually be opening a dispensary in Brooklyn still?
No, the dispensary is going to be at 2610 Broadway in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. The Sanctuary Garden, that is,
Mhm.
that's the name of the dispensary, the Sanctuary Garden on the Upper West Side. So yeah, we're building out. I just came from there. Actually, I just got to the office and I just came from the location, and they painting. They ready to we ready to get started. We ready to come into this
Okay, so
market.
this is really interesting. So we've talked a bit about the struggle of getting there. I'm really interested in knowing you're now about to go into business. Um, what is it like? How onerous are the compliance terms with OCM for a new dispensary opening up right now in New York? Uh, are they making you jump through lots of hoops that seem pointless, or do you feel that they've are moving towards an understanding of how to help a business get at least up and running so you're still here in 24 months' time?
Well, they provided back in 2023, they provided us with the Hour Academy, and the Hour Academy was it was an academy that we, online, in person, where we went, where the licensees and people that were interested in becoming a license owner, um, we were able to go to different classes, from learning about compliance and learning about retail, learning about real estate. So there's so many different aspects and so many different levels to this getting open and getting a retail dispensary open. You know, you have to go to DOB, the Department of Buildings, and get your permit, and you have to wait. That takes time. That took me about 3 months. Then before that, I had to wait for OCM to approve my proximity protection, right? The 1,000-foot rule, the 500-foot rule, 200-foot rule. So it's so many different aspects, and you have to, it's a process, right? You have to trust the process. And, you know, it's not for the faint-hearted, you know. You just got to you got to be boots on the ground, and you got to make those calls and those emails every day. OCM has been kind of a little bit slow in their process in responding.
But compared to say 2 years ago, there is process. There are people that will speak with you, and you can develop relationships with. So
Yeah.
you feel more confident now starting a business compared to that initial outing with Housing Works.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I feel more confident. I feel more positive about, you know, because at that particular time with Housing Works, I decided to build relationships, and I was going to every event, every seminar, every panel discussion, and I was meeting people, and you know, and shaking a hand, giving out my card, and started to develop these relationships, because it's about relationships.
Well, as all business is, isn't it?
As all businesses is, you know, and building those relationships. And when you're building those relationships, you have to nurture those relationships, right? And that's very important. So um, uh, being a face in the industry, and people knowing from where I started to now, I think people are very excited about what I'm about to present to them in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of really practical questions because I'm sort of interested you know, it's not often I get to speak to somebody about the nuts and bolts of opening a dispensary in New York as of
Yes.
now. Supply and product. Is it easy? What are who's responsible for the testing of the product before it hits the shelves? Is it the guys you're buying from, or is it you before it comes through the testing?
Well, the process is like this. You have your cultivator. The cultivator is supposed to go to the testing plant, and probably about 3 to 5 testing in New York State. I think it's a little bit more now. There's about 5 testing sites, and once you get through that, once you pass that testing site, and you come out clean, and
Yeah.
there's nothing. There's no pesticides. There's nothing in that process. Then it goes to a processor, right? And once it gets to the processor, they bag it, and they seal it, and then that product goes back to the tester, and then it tests again, and then it can get back to the processor. Then it can come back to the store, so to speak, right? So it's up to the cultivators and the processors and the distributors to do that testing part, the official next part, before it comes to the store. You know, the seed to sale is very important. New York has came out with BioTrack, and so they follow the product very carefully, very closely. From the testing, from being planted to the testing site, back to the processor, and back to the tester, and then to the retail store. So there's a lot of products out here. There's a lot of
Well, that was my next question. Is are you, I suppose it's two questions. Under your license,
Mhm.
what are you allowed to sell? Flour and what else?
Flour, edibles, gummies. I could sell non-THC brands too, from hemp to CBD. Tinctures.
And do all those hemp products have to be under the 0.3 threshold or whatever the
Yeah.
threshold is in New York? Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, so the retail store can, you know, you have to get your own. You have to get a hemp license to have hemp in your store.
Yeah.
Mainly it's the THC products, from flour to edibles to what do you call it?
beverages and those sorts of things.
Beverages, exactly, to all of that, all of those things. Yeah.
And are you sourcing from a multitude of suppliers, or have you got who? I'm really interested in this process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're opening up a store. Are they
Yeah.
coming to you and saying,
So
or are you going out to them and saying, please, please, can you supply to us? I'm really interested in how that supplier retailer relationship works in New York State.
I've been fortunate enough to partnership with Indoor Trees, and their inventory manager, my guy Reeb, he's been very helpful in teaching me that process. I've learned a lot in that aspect. There's probably over 900 products that's being sold right now. There's processors that have everything that you need, but you want a variety of things, so you go to these different processors and you order in terms of what you think you need on your shelf. The Sanctuary Garden is going to curate a menu. I'm not trying to have 400 products on my shelf and having stuff sit there
Well, exactly. I mean, you want a selected group of
yeah,
products, but at the same
yeah,
time,
very
if
curated menu,
yeah,
and and then I'll see what my customers like. I'll see what they want, and then we'll make adjustments as we
yeah,
go along.
again, just like any other business. I mean, look, we've only got 10 minutes to run, and I knew this would happen because I've got so many questions about New York. But um, are you only allowed to sell on the shop floor? Or are you allowed to send a guy out on a bike to deliver to people?
There's delivery. Yep, we're gonna start off when we open up. We're gonna start off delivery, but the delivery has to go to a residence, and then the customer has to pay online to like a third party debit card,
Okay.
uh, and then because what was happening is that a lot of people, they'll be in a bar, right, and try to order, and you
Yeah, it
can't
has to go
order.
to a residence.
It has to go to a residence, and that resident, whoever's on that paper, has to show their ID to match what's on my dossier, whatever's on that delivery sheet, whatever name and everything, and picture. We have their pictures, we have everything. So once that delivery guy goes out, he knows who he's looking for. It can't go to a second point. Nobody else can pick up that product but the person that ordered. So that's one aspect of it, but we're only allowed to sell in the store only, because I was thinking about doing some curbside type thing, like when you go to when you go like to the burger place and the girls come out with the skates. I was thinking about
No,
that,
no,
but
no, they're definitely not going to allow that for a long
they're
time.
not gonna allow that, so you have to go inside the
And
store.
what hour are you allowed to choose your opening hours, or are you defined by the rules what your opening hours are?
The regulations state that I can open up from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m.
2 a.m. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm doing 9 a.m. to 12 a.m.
Okay. And then because you're a store, and one of the big issues is security, is that costing you a lot of money?
The security, yes, my security payroll is probably the most on the payroll. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but once you've gained a relationship and a rapport, which you can cut down from two security guards to one security guard. You know what I mean? And you have to have cameras. You have to have 24-hour surveillance on this place, inside and out. So there's a lot of
And do
um,
you have to have any particular relationship with your local NYPD?
yes, I do. I have local. Yeah, I went to the local precinct. Went to the local community board, actually. I built relationships with the community board. I built